So every act in Islam should bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Definitely.
So here we put actually the meaning behind circumcision. Right? And here we see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prevents us from that particular act of masturbation. And you know what I mean? Because if you look also at our anatomy, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed us, really, and that we can, find practices or ways how we can apply this deen.
And it's simple. It's not a difficult thing.
It's not a difficult thing. So I would love to hear from the listeners, Sister Qadira, their experiences and their understanding of the sunnat, or the circumcision.
Yes.
Right.
Get your messages through to me via WhatsApp 0786 10 11 12. We'd love to hear from you. I've got a question that has come through here from one of our listeners saying, Salam, is it haram to do it at 1 month old? Now, we are not in the position to say whether something is haram or halal. What Allah has declared, as Allah has decreed. Perhaps, Sister Mahbooba, we did speak about 7 days old versus 7 years.
7 years,
old. And essentially it's just the understanding behind it, whether or not the child understands. And,
you see, also if it's done when the baby is when the baby is young, the mother needs to wash that part of the body, Sister Qadira, and then she has to pull back the skin to wash it, like you know what I mean. When it's done at that particular age, it also doesn't really make it necessary for the mother to pull back the skin all the time.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's easier to clean, right? That you can understand. But I feel there is a deeper meaning.
Yeah.
I feel when it was done in Cape Town, it was done also at the age of 7 or 8, because now there's a consciousnness to it.
Yes.
You understand what I mean? Because now it's more clinical.
Yes.
Dit kind moet gesunnat word. You know what I mean?
And that's all it is.
You see, we don't know, but it's not mentioned in the Quran, but yet breastfeeding is mentioned 6 times in the Quran. And we don't want to breastfeed our children, but we rush to do that particular job.
Yes.
Right? But also the baby is also depending also on the baby's health.
Yes.
Sister Qadira. And also the person who does it, who performs it, must be surgically and religiously be knowledgeable.
Yeah. I mean, if things go wrong, it's it's a scar that a child is left with for life.
Yeah.
Now, Sister Mahbooba, we speak about circumcision, and oftentimes, this topic is directed towards our male counterparts. But I do want to bring in a topic that I feel doesn't get spoken about enough, and that is the concept of circumcision from a woman's perspective. It's not circumcision, it's referred to as female genital mutilation.
You see, the practice in Africa, that has really been condemned, Sister Qadira, because in the manner it is done, Sister Qadira, because we know that the male organ and the female the female clitoris, it has it has thousands of nerve endings, right? And the reason why we circumcise our boys is actually to minimize that sensation, right? Because if I can just tell the listeners, the male organ has about 6,000 nerve endings, and the female organ, the clitoris, actually has about 12,000 nerve endings. So you see now really how sensitive those particular parts of our bodies, but there's a reason for that. There's a reason why the female has more nerve endings, and I think the listeners can do that particular research as well. Right? But again, how amazingly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us for us to actually enjoy those kind of the intimacy between husband and wife
within the context
of marriage. Right? Now imagine we teach our youth before they enter into marriage, with this particular, or they enter into marriage with this particular knowledge. And last week we spoke about the oxytocin that needs to be released when we are intimate, and how that it's a very shy hormone that needs to be released. And also, if we look at also how the male and the female differs, even the skin of the female is much more sensitive than the male, and how we respond to touch. Women, we respond to touch. We respond to kind words. right? So coming back to the female
Genital mutilation.
genital mutilation, the way it's done up in Africa is really not commendable. I think it's a very cruel practice.
Yeah.
But in some communities, it is done with just the clipping of the clitoris, but really removing the whole clitoris. Right? It's just cutting the nerve ending.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think it's also a practice that is somewhat born of ignorance.
Yes.
Because as far as anatomy, as far as anatomy goes, the setup is very different.
Yes.
There isn't that risk, if I can call it that risk of overstimulation in a woman as it would be in a male.
Yeah.
And so it's obviously a practice that is not encouraged. It's a practice that is not advised at all, because the damage it's physical, but it's also psychological.
Absolutely.
In the long term, and it has serious repercussions on that woman's confidence within herself, but also on her ability to reproduce.
Absolutely. Lots of repercussions. And I think there is a move now also in Africa now to stop that.
Yeah.
Because women also in Africa now, because it's been such a tradition for so many years, that if it's not being done, you know what I mean, you are being ostracized from the community. So, but slowly and surely there is but I think what people need to do is to do the necessary research and look at the reason why the female circumcision was necessary at the time.
Yeah. Right? Why people felt it was necessary.
It was necessary, right? Because if you look at how amazingly our bodies have been designed, and when I do talk about these kind of things, Sister Qadra, it's just to think how Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has created us to ensure that the continuation of civilization.
Yeah.
Right, that is necessary for us to procreate within the framework of marriage. Right, so there's a reason behind everything, and I think for the listeners, now that we're talking on this particular topic, there's a reason behind, and Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is most gracious and most merciful, and we experience that mercy, and we experience that Allah's love for us by following and obeying His commands.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Now, Sister Mahbooba, I know that the topic of circumcision is, within the Islamic framework, it is a practice that is recommended, highly recommended for, the boy child, obviously, not for women and not for the female child, but the concept of masturbation, and the proposal is, to teach boys and girls about the self-gratification, in a sense. We've covered the link of circumcision and masturbation for boys, essentially, but how do we approach the topic of masturbation with our girl children?
It's important that we do discuss that also with our girl children, because sorry. Yeah, we do discuss it with our girl children as well, Sister Qadra, because it's out there. The word is out there. The concept is out there. So should my child come home, would say, and this is what was discussed in school today.
Yes.
I must be able to say, but what was discussed? Let me see what the Quran is saying.
Yes.
Let me see what Allah is saying about this. And because, like we earlier said, that you as the parent are the authority on this whole this whole concept and discussing it with our children. It is important because it's all being promoted now in society. This new age morality is promoted within society.
Yeah.
And for children now or youth now to be able to make those informed choices is so necessary. Right?
No, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
But I think it's also a beautiful time where we can actually give them the meaning behind it.
Yes.
We can give them the reason behind it. We can give them the scientific proof.
And I think, Sister Mahbooba, in our wrapping up, I've had 2 messages that have come through that said they missed the first part of the show. And in the first part of the show, in the first part of this particular conversation, you stated, that yes, masturbation is haram. Allah makes that it's categorically clear that it is haram.
Yeah.
Why? Because that's the answer that we're giving
it is
you.
because it's psychologically and emotionally harmful to the human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create us for self-pleasure. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created us to give each other pleasure in the framework of marriage. So that is the reason. Islam is even against celibacy.
Yes.
You understand what I mean? So what the world is actually teaching us today is about the me, myself and I. That we, the individual, that we are important, that you yourself are the only importance.
Yes.
That you don't have an impact on the other.
Yeah.
So these kind of concepts will be, I would say, advertised and marketed so that you yourself being seen as
an individual
and master of yourself, which is totally against Islam.
But it has serious repercussions because the concept of individualism is promoted at a level where it's to do with self and your self pleasure and your self gratification, but that has it has ramifications in a broader context, because you are an individual within yourself taking care of all of your own needs. And so when it comes to when you are required to play your role into society, you can't overcome your individualism in order to play your role in society.
Absolutely.
And we all know the importance that Islam promotes on being a community and having a sense of community.
Absolutely. And also, Sister Qadira, what it does actually, it actually, why it's psychologically harmful, because it produces a guilty conscience, right? It destroys normal confidence, right? And it will have an impact on that person's married life.
Yes. Sister Mahbooba, we've gotten a message from Dr. Shabir who sends through. Assalamu alaikum. It is narrated from Imam As-Sadiq alayhi salam that children should be circumcised as it makes the body cleaner, makes the meat of the body grow faster, and the earth has an aversion to the urine of an uncircumcised person. With regards to the circumcision of boys, it is obligatory on boys, and as with the shaving and aqiqah, it is recommended that it be done on the 7th day after the birth of the child, although if done earlier, there is no harm.
It was done earlier. So there's a hadith coming from the listeners. Yeah. So you see, it all has meaning behind it. You know, the practice has meaning.
Yes.
But it's important also that we also tell our children, you know, why speak to them when they're older, when they're at the age of understanding, why it was performed upon, why it's necessary, why it's a sunnah on the boy child.
Definitely.
Yeah. Shukran for the contribution.
All right, Sister Mahbooba, we've run out of time together.